An IMF report entitled "The Clock is Ticking, Meeting Sub-Saharan Africa's Urgent Job Creation Challenges" has found that Sub-Saharan Africa's economic growth levels translate into fewer jobs being created relative to other emerging markets and developing economies. And it's warning that urgent measures need to be implemented to address whatever structural impediments there are in translating economic growth into job creation. Because it says by 2030, half of the increase in the global labour workforce will come from the Sub-Saharan Africa region, with a need to generate roughly 15 million jobs per year. Well, to discuss these challenges further, I'm joined by Dr. Iraj Abedian. He's the CEO of Pan-African Investment and Research Services. Thank you very much, Iraj, for joining us. So part of the problem or opportunity for Sub-Saharan Africa is that the population continues to grow unabated, while the rest of the globe is set to experience a decline in population size. That is a statement, but also a question.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, and greetings to our viewers. Part of the issue or the phenomenon that you refer to is because there hasn't been economic growth, per capita income, and more importantly, family income over the past 20, 30 years, and possibly over the past 50 years, has not grown at a rate commensurate with the rest of the emerging economies. And one of the important experience in economic development history is that when per capita income goes up, the demographic transition takes place from preference for higher number of, if you like, quantity of children as opposed to quality of children. So that's not really any more disputed, and therefore, to the extent that we are lagging behind in per capita, which means essentially sustained growth, not 2 years or 3 years, over 20, 30 years, we should have economic growth way outweighing or outnumbering the population growth, as a result of which demographic transition would take place and families would have fewer children, but a lot more educated, a lot more experienced and fit for the marketplace.
So the IMF report notes that 8 out of 10 of the economic activities that take place in the region, it happens in the informal sector, which is basically not regulated and whose value is really not measured. But this clearly serves as a lifeline for a lot of Africans. So what is it that nations can do to move from a more informal situation to a more formal setup that recognizes and pays people properly and gives them rights, etc., etc.?
Thank you. That's a very, very central question to our challenge in society and in a political economy sense. And again, books and articles and a lot of research has gone into it. Once again, not disputed anymore, that if societies want to achieve what you just mentioned, go from informal survival economy to a prosperous and growing economy, they need to focus on building institutions first and foremost of property rights. Institutions such as the capable and effective public sector, municipalities, national governments, government departments, and very importantly, institutions of law enforcement and. So to the extent that the societies do not focus on these, and they go on a sort of haphazard, uncoordinated, unsystematic, and essentially unintelligent way, then the economy suffers. The economy suffers, its growth sometimes is high, sometimes is bad, and here and there some external or exogenous, such as COVID-19 happens, or drought happens, or something else, and therefore it sets them back 10, 15 years. So the brief answer to your question is we need to focus on 3 things. We need to focus on building institutions of economic prosperity. We need to build institutions of training, retraining, and technology, because that's central. And very importantly, we need to focus on economic growth, not in the short term, but sustainable, well ahead of average population growth. If we get those 3 key elements into our political economy, then we can catch up with the rest of the emerging economies.
Yeah. So as some people try to empower themselves and not be unemployed, the report also shows that the Sub-Saharan African region does well in the creation of businesses, but for whatever reason, these businesses don't survive. What do you think are some of the tools governments need to be more conscientious about to give, entrepreneurs and small businesses so that they can thrive and survive?
I think support for small businesses or survival businesses, which starts oftentimes out of desperation of families, interestingly enough, in Sub-Saharan Africa, primarily women. Women have been at the center of these informal activities and remain so, and very important for the welfare of the society, is not to harass them, to enable them. Municipalities need to be mindful of that and build infrastructure from a security point of view, from transportation and access point of view, from, of course, funding and expertise support point of view, and from a health and hygiene point of view. So these are the type of operational support that survival economies need, survival enterprises better need, in order to slowly build savings in order to expand their operations.
Dr. Iraj Abedian, thank you so much for your insights there. He's the CEO of Pan-African Investment and Research Services.